It all started 31 years ago, a time that I barely understood but would forever shape me. I was just out of middle school, and my sister was still in elementary, innocent in ways that I would come to realize were fleeting. Our father had met his third wife at the only gas station in our small town, a place as ordinary as it sounds, yet it would become the beginning of a lifelong scar. My dad and this woman, whom I would later come to refer to in my mind as the Shanti wife, moved in together almost immediately, abandoning my sister and me in the cramped basement apartment that had once been our home. I remember those days vividly. The basement walls, cold and damp, seemed to mirror the emptiness I felt inside. Our father would occasionally appear every other week, handing me $40 for groceries as if a few bills could erase the emotional abandonment. But it wasn't just the money. It was the absence, the understanding that he had chosen her, a stranger, over his own children. It didn't take long before someone noticed, someone who cared enough to tell my mother, and we moved in with her. And though the situation might have seemed like an improvement, it was far from it. Life with my mom was chaotic, filled with instability and neglect that compounded the sting of my father's choices. In 1991, my dad and Shanti wife married. Not long after, she called me herself, spinning a web of lies. She claimed my father's brain tumor had returned, that he could not bear the stress of being around us, that he could only be around her and her son, Shorty, who happened to be my age. I remember the hollow pit forming in my stomach when I made the call to my father, seeking truth. He told me the claims were false and that he could not comprehend why she would say such things. That conversation was one of the last we ever had before life swept us in separate directions for decades, growing up without a father's presence, without the support and guidance that most children take for granted. Left a mark. I worked through college, often living out of my car, scraping by and building a life from sheer grit. I heard bits and pieces about my father's life through family whispers. He had bought a house and put Shorty through vocational classes, seemingly nurturing a life for this stepchild I would never meet. My grandmother passed away, and in an almost cartoonish display of entitlement, Shorty and Shanti wife showed up in a truck, hauling away any furniture or belongings not tied down. At that point, I severed ties with my father's side entirely. The hurt, the neglect, and the betrayal had forged in me a quiet determination, the best revenge I realized was simply living well. I built a career, a family, and a life I could be proud of. Yet beneath the surface, a shadow lingered, a curiosity and unhealed anger toward the family that had wronged me. And it was in October of 2019, nearly 3 decades later, that life handed me an opportunity I never saw coming. It began with a phone call from my father's brother, Alan. He informed me that my father was in a nursing home in another state, and that he needed my assistance. My initial reaction was disbelief. Why would I involve myself in the mess of a man who had abandoned me? Yet something tugged at me, a mixture of curiosity and the faintest whisper of opportunity. Shorty, it seemed, had vanished, leaving my father vulnerable, confused, and isolated. I agreed to go, partly out of morbid curiosity. Visiting my father after all those years was surreal, a confrontation with a ghost of my past. The nursing home, ironically, was only 20 minutes from where I lived. The reunion was understated. There were no apologies, no attempts at reconciliation. Only the raw, awkward reality of a man who had aged without the guidance or comfort of his children. He was worried about Shorty, about the house, about everything he had left in this world. Yet, in the same breath, he did not inquire about me, about the life I had forged in the shadows of his absence. I did not go seeking reconciliation. I went seeking clarity and perhaps a glimpse into the life that had been stolen from me. When I first saw his house, I understood the gravity of what had transpired. The lawn, unkempt for months, swallowed the walkway. 3 pickup trucks sat in various stages of decay, 2 overflowing with trash. Inside, from the windows I could peer through, the house was a monument to neglect and chaos. Rotting boxes, piles of mail, broken ornaments, and long-forgotten clothing. My father's handicapped modified SUV sat on 4 flat tires. Buried beneath debris, The realization hit me like a freight train. This was the fruit of Shorty's stewardship, the result of unchecked entitlement and neglect. That night, I researched everything I could about powers of attorney, legal responsibility, and elder abuse. I returned to the nursing home the next day with images of the house. My father, bedridden and frail, looked at the pictures with a mix of horror and resignation. He vowed to confront the chaos, but his limited mobility made that impossible. I told him bluntly that I could help, but only if he signed over full legal authority. Financial and medical powers of attorney were necessary for me to act decisively. With little choice and no understanding of the magnitude of my resolve, he agreed. Finding a lawyer who could handle the out-of-state paperwork was easier than expected. The lawyer, efficient and meticulous, prepared everything flawlessly. I held in my hands the keys to reclaiming what was lost and punishing those who had exploited my father's absence. This was not merely about money. It was about justice, accountability, and the validation that comes from standing for what is right. I began my work with precision, carefully untangling the web of mismanagement Shorty had woven. I created a secure online identity for my father, set up a PO box, forwarded his mail, and obtained detailed financial records. The bank accounts revealed a shocking truth. For over 13 months, Shorty had systematically withdrawn every cent of my father's monthly income, a total exceeding $130,000, under the guise of legal authority. Each transaction had been notarized. A testament to his audacity and ignorance of true fiduciary responsibility, the house itself was an ordeal. I called a locksmith to gain entry, and the stench that greeted us was almost physical. Rot, decay, and the lingering presence of neglect enveloped the place. In the carport, piles of accumulated garbage towered above us, a testament to years of careless indifference. It was in that moment, surrounded by the debris of someone else's irresponsibility, that I felt the first real spark of righteous fury. With legal authority and strategic planning, I began reclaiming control. 2 trucks were towed, and I quietly instructed the operators to send a clear message to Shorty. The house was cleaned by professionals, who even uncovered my father's long-dead dog beneath layers of filth. I documented every detail, photographing, recording, and organizing evidence that would ultimately hold Shorty accountable. I filed a restraining order and reported elder abuse. The local police, initially dismissive, quickly realized the gravity of the situation once I presented them with a detailed dossier. This was no impulsive act of vengeance. It was methodical, deliberate, and legally grounded. I meticulously revoked Shorty's power of attorney, transferred control of accounts, and ensured that every asset he had been exploiting was now beyond his reach. Shorty's ignorance and arrogance were his undoing. Each step I took stripped away his ill-gotten gains and revealed his incompetence. Accounts, insurance policies, property deeds, everything was realigned to reflect rightful ownership. My father, once oblivious, now witnessed from afar the dismantling of the chaos that had defined his life. The court proceedings were almost anticlimactic. Shorty, unprepared and disheveled, appeared alone, his bravado evaporating in the face of meticulous evidence and the authority vested in me. The judge, after reviewing the documentation, granted the restraining order permanently. Legal authority, moral authority, and strategic preparation had converged to deliver justice. Through careful maneuvering, I ensured that my father's assets, his house, bank accounts, and life insurance, were protected and allocated to those who deserved them, my sister and me. I used the power of attorney to remove Shanty Wife from the deed, nullifying any claim Shorty might have had. My father remained unaware of the full extent of my interventions, shielded from the complexity and intensity of the revenge I had executed. In June, my father passed away peacefully, very far from the place of his greatest betrayal, in a national cemetery befitting his service and dignity. The obituary was minimal, functional, and devoid of unnecessary attention. Every detail, from the color of the urn to the location of the gravesite, was a deliberate act to ensure that even in death, the dignity of his life was preserved and the chaos of his past did not intrude. Shorty's downfall continued. He was arrested on felony elder abuse charges, facing years of legal consequences for the reckless and cruel exploitation he had enacted. His life, built on entitlement and exploitation, unraveled entirely, leaving him without family, assets, or credibility. Looking back, the journey was not just about revenge. It was about reclaiming agency, asserting justice, and honoring the resilience forged in the crucible of childhood betrayal. Every step, from the discovery of the house's chaos to the courtroom, was a testament to the power of perseverance, strategy, and righteous indignation. I achieved not only the material recovery of what had been stolen, but also the emotional closure that comes from ensuring accountability. The satisfaction was not in cruelty, but in balance, the restoration of what was rightfully mine and my father's, and the undeniable fact that justice, when pursued with precision, cannot be denied. I sleep peacefully now, knowing that every step was deliberate, that the chaos Shorty cultivated for decades has been dismantled, and that the life my father deserved and I fought for has been honored. The story, while rooted in betrayal and hardship, concludes with a sense of justice, closure, and moral satisfaction that resonates far beyond the personal.